This is the second week of August 2025, and I thought I'd do an update on this Frankenfig tree that I grafted back in February of last year. Most of the varieties on this tree are Spanish, and one tasting I want to do for you today is the Roja. Just take a look at the grafts to see how they've grown and healed up. Here's the Roja, so you can see that graft union there. Now we're winding down on the first main crop. Not too many figs left. Really heavy fruiting last month. So this is kind of the Spanish corollary to the French col de dames. The reason it gets the name Roja is because the interior of the fig, not the skin, but the interior, is a very deep red. It's a very productive variety. Again, not too many on it right now, but it was covered in figs. So you can see that branch there. Because this is a fairly young graft, I really didn't cut it back too much, just so that I would get more fruit off of this variety this year, because I didn't get to try this last year, the first year that I grafted. Okay, another one I want to talk about is the Geneovese Nero AF. The AF stands for the person that introduced it, so that's Adriano Ferreira of Canada, introduced this variety. This is an older graft that I've had on for a number of years. Graft is right down here. You can see it's quite thick. Can't even get my hand around this. So this graft's probably about 6 years old. The fruit is relatively large size, not as large here in the desert as in other areas. So I want to point out there's a couple of different variants of Geneovese Nero out there. This one does come from northern Italy. Like I said, AF stands for Adriano, who introduced this. There's another one called Rob's Geneovese Nero, which is completely different fig. It's more of a brown turkey, so definitely stay away from that one. I don't recommend it. But this variety, the AF strain, is extremely vigorous. I cut my fig trees back really hard each year, and you can see it's the most vigorous. It's put on approximately 6 feet of growth just since it broke dormancy, in March timeframe here. Super productive variety as well. Again, winding down because these have been fruiting for a long time, but just clusters of figs on this variety. I do find that I need to bag these or the birds will get them. And I just want to show you that this variety too can develop honey at the eye if you're watering it enough, keeping the fig moist enough. Alright guys, so Geneovese Nero AF. Look at that. Lots of syrup. Different than a black Madeira, for sure, on taste. It does have a similarity of having kind of that deep cavity and syrup. And actually what I find is the skin is actually much thicker than black Madeira. It's actually quite chewy on this variety, but it does work very well in our climate. This is a fig variety that people say is possibly the same as Italian 258 or I-258. I'm not sure if genetic tests have actually been done on this. In this high heat, if you water properly, you're going to get this fig to ripen properly. Giving that a taste, much more sweet, in my opinion, than black Madeira. And I did a Brix reading on this recently, and I think it was at 24%, so pretty high Brix. And comparing that to what I saw in black Madeira, a little bit higher there on the sugar level. It does have some acidity to it, but definitely pretty sweet fig. And all I can say is, this fig here in a hot, dry climate versus in a cooler climate could take it on a very different taste experience. To know whether it's worth it growing in your area, you just need to actually grow it in your area or know someone who does and see how it stands up to your weather, to your humidity levels or lack thereof, you know, to your rainfall, again, or lack thereof. I've heard different reports on this fig variety versus I-258, again on humidity and splitting with rain. So do your research and see what makes sense for your growing climate. But here in Phoenix, Arizona, where we don't have to worry about, again, splitting or much rain, I never see this fig ever split on me. And in the fall, it is super, super rich. And that's why I want to make this video here in the summertime when it is really, really dry and not the most conducive environment for this fig to ripen. Just to show you it is possible to ripen this well, even in harsh circumstances, even where we've seen between 110 and 119 degrees Fahrenheit in my yard for the last week plus. You can still get these figs to look good. This one's a winner in my opinion, and it is different than Black Madeira. Again, it's hard for me to pinpoint exactly what it tastes like because it's one of those nuanced berry type figs where it doesn't come through with a single berry note. To me, it's a mix. All right, Col de Dame Roja. This absolutely is the sweetest berry fig that I have ever tasted. I've tested this on bricks, 32, highest I've ever seen on bricks. You can see the interior. I don't even understand how it can ripen like this because so many of our berry figs in the summertime have a pale kind of look. And I've actually looked this up and what causes the pigmentation, this chemical compound, and seeing how that relates to heat. And generally speaking, that pigmentation doesn't happen when you have a lot of high heat, which explains why our figs look so lackluster on the interior in the high heat and why they look so beautiful in the fall when we have those cooler temperatures. So I don't quite understand why this fig variety specifically doesn't need the cooler temperatures to color up like it does, but this is the one fig that even in 119 degrees Fahrenheit will color up to this absolutely dark red, crimson red color on the interior. As with other Col de Dames, it is thick. It is almost like you can spoon it out like pancake batter, as people have said, very much similar to a Col de Dame gigantina that I am also growing here. This one is different than that one in that it puts off very deep berry flavor, but more of a mix between raspberry and strawberry. Delicious, delicious fig. Every year, things can move up and down on my ranking scales, but Col de Dame gigantina is my absolute favorite on taste. This will probably be the second on taste for me. The Col de Dame Roja. Absolutely amazing. Red Lebanese Bekaa Valley. I love that fig overall just because it pumps out figs all season long. It's the earliest to ripen, it's the latest to ripen, and it gives me several main crops, and it's a really delicious fig. But if you look on taste alone, it doesn't compare to these Col de Dames. They're amazing here if you give them the water. I struggled with the Col de Dames in the past because I did not water properly. And when I say water properly, I mean multiple times a day, giving these figs the moisture they need to ripen up, not loading them down with hundreds of gallons of water in a week, but just giving them a small amount of water, like I've mentioned in other videos, maybe 4 gallons of water a day, broken up into multiple sessions. 4 sessions a day is kind of the sweet spot that I have found. But yeah, even now, in the horrible heat of our summer, you can get these kinds of figs here in Phoenix, Arizona. So just want to review these two for you. Hope you enjoyed this. Happy gardening.